Welcome viewers. Tonight, we delve into a powerful and strategic shift in global diplomacy as NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte spoke candidly on Fox News' special report about President Donald Trump's bold new agenda on Russia and Ukraine. In a clear warning to Russia's key trading partners, namely China, India, and Brazil, Rutte urged them to pressure Vladimir Putin to take ceasefire and peace negotiations seriously, especially in light of Trump's proposed 100% secondary tariffs on nations continuing commerce with Moscow.
You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language too.
I don't want to say he's an assassin, but he's a tough guy.
I know Putin very well from the days when I was Prime Minister. In the Netherlands, you have to test him. And you did this, and you really gave him a chance to be serious, to get to the table.
Well, as we told you at the top of the program, President Trump is sending additional weapons to NATO countries for distribution to Ukraine. It's part of his effort to try to end the war with Russia. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte was on hand for that announcement, as you saw in the Oval Office. He joins us on set tonight. Mr. Secretary General, thanks for being here.
Good to be on the program.
What's your takeaway from your meeting today and that announcement and how significant it is?
This is really significant. So last Thursday, I got a call from President Trump. He said, hey, Mark, we really want to ramp up the support for Ukraine when it comes to weapons. And then this morning I was in the White House preparing for the meeting with him, and he said when it comes to the sanctions, clearly we have to take the next step now. And he can only dialogue once, so he has to take this step by step. I totally understand that. But he was really, I think, irritated with his last phone call with Putin, who is not serious, it seems, about getting into peace deals, to peace negotiations.
So now there's a 50-day deadline. Essentially, the president put that on the table today. And you think that the sanctions on other countries doing deals with Russia will create additional pressure, exponential?
Absolutely. This is significant. So today, if you are in Beijing or in Delhi, or you're in Brazil, and you know that this is coming to you, you might want to call Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin and say, hey, friend, we are still buying stuff from you, but you have got to get serious when it comes to these negotiations on a ceasefire or a peace deal, or otherwise we get hit by these secondary sanctions. There will be also an effect directly on Russia, of course. But this is really significant, and it is smartly designed by the president.
What about the weapons themselves? Why not the U.S. directly to Kyiv? Why through European countries in NATO?
Well, there are two sides to this. One is the logistics, and NATO is good at logistics. So get the weapons into Ukraine in a way that they can make maximum use of them. So packaged in packages which are really useful, and for them to be maximum effective. And then, of course, is the issue of who is paying for it. And the president, and I totally understand this, he said, hey, listen, Mark, we want to deliver these weapons into Ukraine, making sure that they can sustain in the fight, that they somehow are able to defend themselves against the Russians. But you guys in Europe have to pay for it. And I think that's fair. We had the NATO summit, which was a huge foreign policy success for President Trump. Europeans stepping up. And here again, the Europeans are stepping up, taking responsibility to pay for these weapons.
You know, Vladimir Putin has shown no indication he's going to stop this. And obviously, you've talked to the president about how much these phone calls have irritated him. We have this chart that shows the number of attacks, drone and missile strikes on Ukraine, sometimes right after these phone calls, going up. So what is it going to take? How much more support for Ukraine to get to the table, the negotiating table, to push Russia to that point?
But this is why today was so significant, because three things are happening at the same time. We know that the Russian economy is not in a terribly good shape. And so that is already taking place, this economic impact the war is having on Russia itself, and the fact that this war costs a lot of money. Today, what Putin now hears from the American president and from the Europeans is that we will do whatever it takes for Ukraine to be as strong as possible when peace deals taking place or peace negotiations will start, to be in the best possible place at that moment. And then on top of that, the threat of sanctions in 50 days on those who are still buying, so like Brazil and India and China, from Russia. So if I was in the Kremlin today, I would not be too happy, because this is a clear signal that President Trump is serious. He wants peace. He hates the fact that so many people lose their lives in Ukraine.
You said that the U.S. is not secure if the Atlantic, Europe, and the Arctic are not secured. There's an increasing realization, and let's not be naive about it. If Xi Jinping would attack Taiwan, he would first make sure that he makes a call to his very junior partner in all of this, Vladimir Putin, residing in Moscow, and telling him, hey, I'm going to do this, and I need you to keep them busy in Europe by attacking NATO territory. So you see this all linked together.
Absolutely. And most policy experts see this all linked. Because there was always the thinking the Chinese might attack Taiwan as a sort of isolated incident, which is, by the way, of course, big enough by itself. But it is clear that China is supporting Russia's war effort in Ukraine, together with North Korea and Iran. So this is North Korea, China, Iran working together with the Russians. And China is doing that for a reason. It gives them leverage over, indeed, their very junior partner, Vladimir Putin. And clearly, if they would move on Taiwan, they will force Putin to move on Europe. And for the US, NATO is there because, of course, you want Europe to be safe, but in the first place also because the US has to stay safe. And therefore, you need a safe and secure Atlantic, Arctic, and Europe.
How is President Trump seen around the world by world leaders you deal with?
I think he is very well respected. And I thought in The Hague, at the summit, 31 leaders, so the 32nd, of course, is the US, in itself, by the way, bigger than all the other 31 combined. That is how powerful this country is and this nation is in your military. But the other 31 leaders really recognizing, hey, this is somebody who is absolutely clear what he wants to achieve, is committed to NATO, but he is extremely frustrated about the fact that we were not paying up, and now we are paying up. And therefore, this commitment to NATO is ironclad.
You raised some eyebrows when you used the term daddy.
Yeah, I probably should have said father or the grown-up in the room. But you know, and this is the fun part about President Trump. He came back to the White House, and immediately there was this video released, Daddy is home. Yeah. And you've seen a T-shirt with Daddy on it. So
he laughed about it.
He laughs about it, and that is why I like him so much, because he has that humor and that light touch, and he's a great man.
Rutte praised the economic pressure campaign, stating it directly targets the Kremlin's financial lifelines and signals Trump's commitment to ending the war. Rutte also welcomed Trump's plan to send billions in US weapons to Ukraine, paid for by NATO allies, calling it a fair and effective strategy. He emphasized that the aid would include both defensive and offensive weaponry, coordinated swiftly with Ukraine by NATO's military leadership. Supporting the dual-track policy of military strength and economic sanctions, Rutte made it clear, peace through strength is back, and NATO stands firmly behind this tough but calculated push to bring Russia to the negotiating table.